I had this idea stuck in my head that maybe, just maybe, a beautiful house could fix the kind of fractures time and silence had deepened in our family. I kept telling myself it wasn't about showing off or proving a point. It was about legacy, togetherness, a home. That's why I never told anyone I bought it. $17 million, all paid, my name on the deed, no co-signers, no complications. I didn't want them to know right away because I wanted the reveal to mean something. I wanted to see their faces light up. I wanted them to feel chosen, especially Marla. So I cooked up the idea of a dinner. Casual. Housewarming, I told them. Let Marla send out the invites. It'd seem more natural that way. I folded napkins into sparrows, a habit I picked up years ago when I was trying to teach myself to find beauty in doing things alone. I set every place at the table myself, even polished the water glasses until they caught the light just right. And then they came. I opened the door that evening, expecting warmth. What I got instead was Marla standing at the front like she owned it, greeting each guest with arms outstretched, like she was unveiling some personal palace. Her voice rose and fell like a well-rehearsed hostess. I stood behind her, half a step off the porch, feeling like an assistant, or a caterer. I didn't want to cause a scene, not then, so I smiled. I let them pass, one by one. "You must be proud of Clive and Marla," someone whispered to me, handing over a bottle of Cabernet. "They really outdid themselves." Another leaned in with a wink. "Can't believe they pulled it off. You know how hard it is to lock down a house in this area?" I nodded. Silent. A heat crept up my neck. Not embarrassment, not quite. Something meaner. A kind of invisible insult that had no name. There was a sign by the entrance. "Welcome to the Deneen's Dream." White cursive over rustic barnwood. Not mine. When I walked into the dining room, my steps faltered. The table had been set. Beautifully, yes, but not by me. My folded napkins had vanished, replaced with plain linens and placeholders scribbled with family names, except mine. I scanned the table. No card, no chair. Marla must have seen me pause because she breezed over, all saccharine and smug. "There's a chair in the kitchen, sweetie. We didn't know you were coming." She knew. She damn well knew. I walked into the kitchen, pulled out a chair from the breakfast nook, carried it in, and placed it at the far end. I sat down without a word, then reached into my pocket and took out the last folded sparrow I'd kept. I set it on the table in front of me like a silent flag. Nobody noticed, or if they did, they didn't say a word. Dinner moved along like I wasn't even there. Marla raised her glass midway through and gave a toast. "To Clive," she smiled, "for working so hard to make this dream possible. And to all of you, for believing in us. This is just the beginning." There was no mention of me, not a glance, not a nod. I looked at Clive, my brother. He gave me a sheepish, closed-mouth smile, like a child who'd just broken something and hoped not to get caught. A distant cousin leaned in toward me, half drunk, cheerful. "So, what are you doing these days?" I blinked. "Mostly?" I said. "I just write checks and fold napkins." He laughed. I didn't. I don't know what hurt more, that I was left out or that I let it happen. I sat through that dinner hearing my legacy being narrated with someone else's voice. I watched my effort become their narrative, and I remembered what my father used to say. "The world doesn't rob you loud, it edits you in silence." Maybe that was what was happening. Maybe I was being edited out. And still, I smiled. I passed the butter. I laughed when someone cracked a joke about the HVAC, but inside, something snapped. I'd paid for the land. The beams, the paint, the permits. I designed the kitchen layout, the lighting. I'd stayed up arguing with contractors over timelines, and yet there I sat, like a guest invited by mistake to her own home. Was it a mistake to do this for them? To try again, to be part of something they only ever let me orbit around? Or was this the only way to finally see them for who they really were? By the end of the night, Marla stood at the door, giving hugs like a politician at a town hall. "Thanks so much for coming," she told everyone. "We're so glad to start this next chapter together." I stayed behind, cleaning up plates and tossing napkins. No one asked me to. But no one stopped me either. When the lights were dimmed and the house was quiet again, I stood at the table alone. There it was, my little sparrow napkin, still sitting there, untouched, left at the edge of the table where I had placed it. I picked it up, smoothed it out, looked around at the place I built, the family I tried to give it to, and whispered, maybe I should have left my name off the deed too. The house was mine, every inch of it, from the wrought iron gate to the last coat of paint in the pantry. Bought it with my own money, clean, legal, earned. No joint accounts, no family loans, just me. I kept it quiet on purpose, not because I was hiding it, but because I wanted the reveal to feel like a gift, a warm shock. I imagined them walking in and seeing it for the first time, mouths open, eyes soft. I told myself it'd be a new start, a way to say, I still care, even if I've been forgotten. So I let Marla send the invites, told her to say it was a housewarming dinner. Nothing formal. I folded napkins into sparrows that afternoon, something I did when I needed to feel like I was part of something delicate. It was my little habit. Peace made with paper. I lit the candles myself. Set the table with care. 12 chairs. One for each person I wanted to believe in again. The first car pulled up around 6. Then another. And another. By the time I opened the front door, Marla was already at the porch, arms open, voice sweet. She greeted each guest like the place had her name carved into the bricks. I stepped back. Let her take the lead. Didn't want to cause a stir. Oh, we're so proud, someone whispered behind me. Clive and Marla really pulled it off this time. I turned. A cousin I hadn't seen in years handed me a bottle of Merlot. Be sure to thank them for us. This is a dream home. I nodded. Didn't correct her. Just took the bottle and smiled like I hadn't been slowly boiling from the inside since the third guest stepped past me like I was part of the wall. There was a sign at the entrance, not the one I put up. This one was rustic, charming, and wrong. The Deneen's dream home. No mention of me. Inside, the dining room glowed. The table was set, but not with the napkins I folded. Plain white ones, cheap-looking. Mine were gone. The name cards sat at each place, neatly aligned. Except for one. I scanned the row again, then again. Nothing. Marla noticed. She tilted her head like a school principal speaking to a late student. There's a chair in the kitchen, sweetie. We didn't know you were coming. She knew. She absolutely knew. I walked to the kitchen, found an old chair by the wall, dragged it back myself, pulled it to the far end, sat down, reached into my pocket and pulled out the only sparrow I kept. Set it on the table in front of me. Nobody asked why. Nobody flinched. Dinner went on like it always did, except this time, in the house I bought. Halfway through the meal, Marla stood up with a glass of wine and tapped it lightly. I just want to say how grateful we are, she said. Clive worked so hard to make this home a reality. And to all of you, thank you for believing in us. Us. I stared at my plate. My hands were still. But inside, something cracked. My brother gave me a weak smile. The kind of look you give a stranger who's about to embarrass herself. He didn't say a word. Across from me, someone asked, "So, what are you doing these days?" It wasn't even malicious, just distant. Mostly, I said. I write checks and fold napkins. He laughed, went back to his casserole. No one noticed when I got quiet, or maybe they were just relieved. The thing is, this wasn't new. I'd been edited out of things before, photos, group messages, conversations. But this was different. This was my house, the beams, the hardwood floors, the imported tile I argued with the contractor over, the open concept kitchen I paid extra to reinforce for family events. And I was invisible. My father used to say, "You know you've disappeared when you stop correcting them." That night, I stopped. I helped clear the table when dessert was done, stacked the plates, rinsed the glasses. Not because I had to, but because I'd done it for years and nobody questioned it. Marla stood at the front door, hugging people goodbye like she was running for office. "Thank you for coming," she said, smiling wide. "We're just so lucky to have this space to grow in." As the last taillight disappeared down the driveway, I walked back into the dining room. The lights were dim. The air still smelled like roasted garlic and red wine. And there it was, my sparrow napkin, still folded, still sitting there at the edge of the table, untouched. I picked it up, pressed it flat between my palms. Maybe I should have left my name off the deed, too. I didn't sleep that night. My body was still. My eyes weren't. The wine glasses were still in the sink. The house smelled faintly of roasted garlic and lemon vinaigrette. I walked into the dining room just as the sun started rising, and there it was, my folded napkin sparrow. Still where I left it, untouched, like everyone else had agreed it didn't belong. Clive was asleep upstairs, breathing heavy like he'd run a marathon in his dreams. I stood in the kitchen, my fingers tracing the edges of the counter I picked out myself. I kept thinking, maybe I overreacted. Maybe they didn't mean it like that. But the way Marla smiled, the way everyone assumed, it wasn't nothing. I opened the bottom drawer. I kept the original blueprints there, at least I thought I did. What I pulled out wasn't mine, new diagrams, different layout. My name was missing. In bold letters on the top corner it said, Primary Suite, Clive Marla. My office? Gone. Replaced with Craft Room, Family Use. Red ink comments filled the margins. Move wall back for openness, brighter for hosting events. Dining flow better this way. The handwriting wasn't mine. It wasn't even close. I stared at the sheet like it was a betrayal written in architectural shorthand. I called the designer. When did these changes happen? I asked. A pause, then. Marla signed off on the final updates last Thursday. I didn't respond, just hung up and sat on the floor like gravity had changed its rules overnight. 10 minutes later, I got a text from a cousin, forwarded by mistake, a group chat. The title read, House Coordination Thread. Everyone in the family was on it, except me. I scrolled, watching my own house be repurposed in real time, assignments for bedrooms, mentions of Marla's parents moving in. Clive's side needs priority, it's only fair, someone wrote. One message stood out. Should we convert her room once she's out? They didn't even say my name, just her. There's a special kind of hurt in being erased so efficiently that even the people doing it forget you were there to begin with. I set the phone down, looked at the house. At the beams I paid extra to reinforce. The custom shelves. The stone I fought to get sealed right. And now this. Being squeezed out one decision at a time. Maybe they never really believed I bought it. Maybe they thought it was Clive's money, or some kind of group investment, a shared resource, a family project. I thought back to what Darla told me months ago when I was filing the deed. Use a trust, just in case, even with family. At the time, I thought she was being cautious. Now, I thought she was being prophetic. I got up, walked to the office, turned on the printer, and began pulling every thread I could find. Original floor plans, emails, texts, scanned receipts. I created a new folder on my desktop. Label. Evidence. I knew better than to blow up now. I knew better than to scream. But I also knew better than to stay quiet. I sat back, hands on my lap, staring at the screen. If I say something now, I whispered, I'll be the dramatic one. If I don't say anything, I'm their silent permission. I started an email draft to the designer. Subject, design access. Freeze. Body. Please pause all changes unless confirmed directly by me, no exceptions. I didn't hit send, just saved it, let it sit like a loaded gun. I wasn't ready to fire yet. They wanted to take the house. Fine. Let's see what else they'd try to take. I would let them keep walking toward the edge. Let them believe they were winning. Because when you're too quick to fight, they call you emotional. But when you wait, when you gather, when you watch, you become undeniable. Later that night, after Clive fell asleep again, same heavy breath, same silence, I sat on the edge of the bed with my laptop open, one last check before turning in. New message. Subject. Let's align on shared expectations. From Marla. I stared at it for a full minute, hands still, heart steady. Then I whispered to no one but myself. I didn't open her email. Marla's subject line, let's align expectations, just sat there, unread, staring at me like it was waiting for my permission to twist something else in my name. I wasn't in the mood to hear her tone in my head. Not that early, not after what they'd already made clear. I wiped the counters in silence, a few crumbs left from last night. The kitchen was too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I noticed something odd. The design team wasn't in the guest wing. They were supposed to finish the shelving install today. No noise, no van outside. I called the office. The receptionist answered on the third ring. "Oh, hi, yes," she said. "Marla told us you'd pushed back walkthroughs this week. We've rescheduled for Monday." I stood there with the phone still to my ear even after the line went quiet. No words, just that old, slow heat crawling up the back of my neck again. My house, my project, her schedule. I didn't tell anyone I was heading over. Pulled up slow, parked 2 houses down. There were 4 unfamiliar cars in the drive. A white Lexus, a dark green Cadillac, and a silver SUV with out-of-state plates. I stayed low in my seat. From where I parked, I could see the front lawn, and there she was, Marla, dressed like she was hosting a brunch for state senators. Smiling, gesturing, laughing, she was leading a tour through my damn garden. Behind her were 3 women, maybe 4. One looked like her aunt, another I recognized from a church fundraiser. The rest, older, polished, the type that always have something to say but never raise their voices. Marla pointed toward the porch with the same hand she used to wave at me the first day she walked into this house. Now, she motioned like it was hers to promise. One of them laughed and said, "This would be perfect for those foundation galas you keep talking about." I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles felt like they'd crack. I waited. 5 minutes. Then 10. Then I got out. Used the side entrance, quiet like I didn't belong in my own home. I could hear their voices echoing through the front hallway. I walked soft, slow, careful not to interrupt. I wanted to hear, to see what else had been repackaged. As I turned toward the hallway, I caught her voice, Marla again, leading them toward the room that used to be my library. "This'll be the media space. Projector on that wall, bar card over there. Jericho won't mind." That name, my name, spoken like a background character. A non-voting party to her plans. One of the women joked, "Where is she in all this, anyway?" Marla didn't hesitate. She's not really involved in the design side of things. I didn't move, didn't breathe. They kept walking. After the group finally left, 30 minutes, maybe 40, I waited another 5 before stepping outside. Needed air. That's when I saw it, the sign, at the front gate, where the old blank one had been. Now, in elegant serif font, it read, "The Dineen's Retreat." Not my name, not even a hyphen, weatherproof, nailed down, permanent. I took a picture. Then I texted the property manager. "Who authorized the new sign install?" I asked. His reply came quick. "Per Mrs. Dineen's request, last week." So that was that. The erasure was no longer implied. It was painted. I walked back to the car. Calm for now. Sat down, pulled out my phone again. Took photos of everything. The sign, the driveway, Marla on the porch earlier. Then I opened a new folder. Project, Reclaim. I messaged Darla with one line. Need to speak, quietly. This wasn't her just being petty. This wasn't oversight. This was takeover. I looked back at the house one more time, took a long breath through my nose, and whispered to myself, "Let them build the stage. I'll control the curtain." Just as I buckled in, my phone buzzed again. Notification. Family dinner planning thread. Marla Dineen added you. I tapped it open. First message at the top. "Let's make this feel like home, for all of us." I whispered back. "Not if I burn it first." The envelope was already on the kitchen island when I walked in. Thick, off-white, no return address. Just my name in soft cursive. I didn't rush to open it. I stared at it for a few minutes while the coffee brewed, half hoping it was a thank you note or an apology for the tour. Maybe a family recipe Marla wanted to pass along, but it wasn't. Inside were 5 neatly clipped pages titled Temporary Family Living Agreement. It wasn't official, no notary stamp, but it was slick enough to fool someone distracted. Language designed to sound generous, equitable. Clauses like shared space for collective growth, room assignments to foster fairness, future gifting for long-term legacy preservation. My name showed up only once, at the very end. The current legal owner, Jericho Vale, is expected to formalize shared ownership to solidify multi-generational stability. I sat down, read it again, slower. Every word dripped with assumption. It wasn't a contract, it was a roadmap. What for stealing what I hadn't even finished settling into? Upstairs, the hallway was quiet. I passed the door to the old master suite, now locked. New brushed gold handle, keyless entry. They'd changed the hardware. Near the laundry room, a yellow sticky note fluttered slightly from the breeze of the ceiling fan. Your room. I'd been. I peeled it back, opened the door. The guest bedroom was barely bigger than a walk-in closet. Mattress still wrapped in plastic. A folding chair in the corner. No closet bar. No bedside lamp. It was a message dressed up as a favor. I stood there silent, remembering something that hit like a splinter. A family reunion in Michigan when I was 16. Everyone had real beds. I slept in the shed on an air mattress. No one said why. They just arranged it that way. They've never had a problem minimizing me, I muttered. Just finally made it architectural. For the first time, I wasn't angry. I was over it. That kind of hurt doesn't flare. It simmers down into something solid. I gathered the few items I'd left in shared spaces, my tea stash from the pantry, a framed photo from the mantel, the monogrammed throw blanket I brought from my old apartment. Not because I was packing to leave, but because I was taking back what hadn't been theirs to start with. I didn't knock on Clive's door. I didn't text Marla. I just sat in the small room, shut the door behind me, and called Darla. She answered on the first ring. Talk, she said. I told her everything. The blueprint changes, the tour, the sign, the contract, the room. She went quiet, then said, they're setting up a paper trail. If this goes to court, that document won't hold, but it'll slow you down. You need to lock things down, now. We planned. Freeze the design files, copy all payments, archive every receipt. She'd meet with me Monday to review the trust documents. If they want to go legal, she said, we'll show them what real legality looks like. No drama, I replied. No explosions. I'm not giving them anything loud to twist. Her voice softened. Good. Let them underestimate you. After we hung up, I opened my laptop, renamed the folder from House Files to War Room. Every blueprint, every email, every wire transfer. I created a new doc titled Timeline of Occupation, and I wrote, Day 1. They moved in. I stepped back. Day 17. They changed the locks. I said nothing. Day 28. They assigned me a room. Day 29. I stopped playing nice. That night, I stood at the doorway of my assigned guest room. I looked around again. The folding chair. The mattress in plastic. The absence of care. I smiled. Not bitter, not broken, just clear. I bought this house with love, I whispered. Now I'll protect it with law. A knock at the door pulled me back. Clive stood there holding a tray of tea, like it was a peace offering from a child who didn't understand the war. Marla thinks we should all sit down tomorrow, he said. Just talk things through. I took the mug. Didn't sip. Let's, I said without blinking. Clive said, let's talk. That was 3 days ago. No follow-up, no time, no place, just air. So when I saw Marla's social media post that Saturday evening, grateful to host such a beautiful dinner with family tonight, I didn't blink, didn't breathe either, just stared at the caption. She didn't just rewrite the guest list, she rewrote the story, deleted me from it, one dinner at a time. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a trap, a performance. I didn't comment, didn't text, just stood there in the middle of my kitchen with my phone in hand, wondering how many other people saw that post and thought it was true. Thought I'd simply opted out, or worse, never belonged in the first place. I called Darla. Her voice came through quick and calm. Don't react, she said. Silence is their tactic. Yours is proof. So I drove, not fast, just far enough to park 2 blocks down. Watched from a distance. The house glowed like a movie set. Lights in the backyard. The grill on, children laughing, music low and curated. Every chair on that patio was one I'd paid for. 12 white wooden garden chairs I ordered myself from a boutique in Asheville. 11 were set around the long table. The 12th, mine, was missing. Intentional. I stayed in the car, rolled down the window, let the noise reach me like static. They never said my name. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. I took a photo, closed the camera, saved it to a folder I renamed right there. Not invited. Back home, I tried to focus. Sat at my desk, opened files, skimmed unread emails. But something was off. A drawer, slightly ajar. The one that held the originals of my trust documents. I never left it open. I checked the folders. One copy was gone. A draft with my attorney's edits. Red ink, margin notes. A page number circled. Nothing major, not enough to panic over. But gone nonetheless. I traced my memory. Velda had cleaned this room earlier. She always left things untouched, said the office made her nervous. But she had been here, and so had Marla. I remembered her walking through, looking for an envelope. She'd said, I didn't panic, just closed the drawer, locked it, then opened my laptop. I sent every single file to my private cloud, encrypted, double key. Then I ordered a motion detection camera. Small, quiet, black casing. Arrives Monday. Then I sat back, replayed it all in my mind. Not the dinner, not the missing chair. The strategy, Marla's strategy. She doesn't attack. She undermines. She edits. She deletes. She makes you question if you're overthinking. Then she calls you difficult for noticing. They don't break you loudly, I said aloud. They erase you with kindness. I opened a new file. Timeline of tampering. Documented everything. The missing blueprint. The changed invoices. The forwarded chat. The trust draft. The dinner I wasn't invited to. She wants a war of perception. Fine, let's give her a paper war. I nearly confronted Velda. Drafted a text. Deleted it. She was a pawn. Maybe not even a willing one. Instead, I drafted something else. A cease and desist letter for unauthorized access to my property files. I didn't send it yet, just saved it. Let it sit like weight in a loaded sling. Then I backed up every file I had, again, sent copies to Darla. Labeled each one clearly, in case. I booked a slot on Darla's calendar for Monday morning. There were no tears, not anymore. Only steps, only plans. That night, I fell asleep with the lights on and my laptop open beside me. At 2:07 a.m., a soft vibration woke me. Motion detected. Office. I tapped the screen, opened the camera. The image was blurry, shadowed. Someone had entered, not Velda. Too tall, house shoes, familiar gait, slight limp. I zoomed in. Clive. The footage didn't lie. It was Clive. Around 2 in the morning, same lazy shuffle in his feet, house shoes dragging slightly on the tile. The angle caught his face for just a moment, enough to erase any doubt. He didn't rifle through drawers. He didn't look around. He opened the bottom file cabinet, placed a manila folder inside, and closed it softly. Then he stood there for a second, like he was debating something, then turned and walked out. When I opened the drawer that morning, I already knew what I'd find. The folder was unmarked, but inside was a handwritten letter. Neat penmanship, no crossing out. Jericho, we're at a crossroads. None of this is meant to be combative. We're all tired. Maybe your emotional fatigue is making things feel bigger than they are. Let's not escalate this. We love you. Clive. I folded it without flinching and slipped it back where I found it. Locked the drawer this time. Not because it needed protection, but because I'd had enough of people assuming my silence meant access. Before I could close my laptop, another notification slid into view. Subject line, prep notes, final docs, do not CC her. I almost deleted it. Almost. But curiosity overrode fatigue. It was a reply chain. Originally meant for Marla's sister, but someone clicked the wrong name. My name. The message was short, No formal greeting. If she reacts, we'll call it a misunderstanding. If not, we've got room to move. Docs should be finalized Friday a.m. Push the tax prep. She won't notice. Keep the energy soft. Below it, attachments, scans of property transfer documents, trust amendments. My signature, forged. I leaned back. It wasn't even the signature that made my stomach turn. It was the tone, that quiet confidence, the assumption that I'd either be too passive or too late. I forwarded the entire thread to Darla with one line, "Your move." The reply came within 5 minutes. We scheduled an emergency call. By noon, Darla had flagged the documents as felony-level fraud. We looped in the trust attorney. He sounded confused, then cautious. "I'm sorry," he said, "but according to our system, you revoked your own access 2 weeks ago." "Did I now?" I said. Marla had used old security answers. Maybe some saved data. Whatever it was, she'd impersonated me just long enough to revoke my status, but not long enough to destroy the evidence. We froze all transactions pending verification. Every asset tied to the trust was locked down. "Silent wasn't working," Darla said. "Now we go surgical." I walked through the house after the call ended, my phone recording as I moved from room to room. Not for emotion, for documentation. Every corner, every modified shelf, every closet that had been relabeled or cleared. It hit me how long I'd let the story slide out of my hands. My dad used to say, "A man's home is his castle, unless he invites the enemy through the front gate." I think I opened every gate. With cookies in hand, I found an old voicemail from Clive buried in my inbox, dated 5 years back. He was congratulating me on the house I sold in North Carolina. "You've always been the backbone, sis. We just don't say it enough." I renamed the file, Exhibit A, Amnesia. No more waiting, no more pacing. I sat at my desk and drafted a formal legal notice. Property boundary enforcement. It outlined which rooms were now off limits, reinstated me as sole authority over any financial or design changes, reinforced that any further access outside the scope of residency would be treated as trespassing. Then I created a calendar invite, discussion on asset misrepresentation. I added Darla, added Clive, added Marla. And, because it mattered, I added Aunt Rosemary, the only elder in our family who still had a shred of neutrality left in her bones. I wrote in the body, "You've both had time to plan. I hope you've also made time to listen." I hit send. That night, while reviewing camera logs, another email pinged in. Not from Clive, not from Marla. It was Aunt Rosemary. "I'll be there," she wrote. "But you should know, Marla already called a meeting of her own. You weren't invited." I closed the laptop slowly and whispered, "Then I'll show up anyway." I didn't knock. Didn't need to. I parked across the street like any other guest, stepped out of my car holding a slim black folder labeled in gold. Property documentation. My clothes were deliberate, clean, sharp, subtle. Nothing flashy. The kind of look that made it clear I wasn't there to apologize or explain, just to correct the record. As I walked up the path, I could already hear her voice, Marla, pacing the front room like a talk show host, laughing, controlling the flow, warming the audience. I stepped through the door mid-sentence. She froze. So did everyone else. Clive stared at the floor. He knew I'd come. I scanned the room. 6 people on couches and chairs. A few cousins. Aunt Rosemary. The energy shifted when I didn't shrink. "Don't worry," I said, placing the folder on the coffee table. I brought receipts. The room didn't move. I opened the folder, one tab at a time. First, trust documentation, dated, signed, traced. Then, purchase invoices, closing costs, wire transfers, design approvals. Next, printed emails showing Marla's signature on change orders she told others I approved. Finally, I held up a printed copy of the most recent utility bill. Her name? Her email? My address? The air thinned. Clive looked like he'd swallowed gravel. A younger cousin blinked and said, "Wait, she's been switching stuff over to her name?" Marla stepped forward. "It was a clerical thing. Honestly, some default setting when we set up the power account." I slid the page toward her as she reached, then gently stopped her hand with mine. Don't touch what isn't yours. The room went still again. She didn't argue. I wasn't done. I pulled out the floor plan next. This, I said, unfolding it slowly, is what my original design looked like. Then I laid the modified version beside it, the one labeled the Deneen's Master Suite. I held up a sticky note, the one I found outside the laundry room. Your room? No one laughed. I turned to Clive. Did you ever stop to think I might notice being demoted in my own home? He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I flipped to the final page. This is a request form to adjust the title, adding Marla as co-owner. That's what this has all been building toward, right? No one answered. They didn't need to. Marla cleared her throat, trying to steer the tone. I just wanted a home where we could all belong, she said. It wasn't about ownership. It was about inclusiveness. I didn't look at her. Jericho's always had her own path, she added. Sometimes that makes things harder to coordinate. I nodded slowly. Independence doesn't erase ownership, I said. It protects it. Aunt Rosemary looked from one of us to the other, then asked, why wasn't this shared with everyone before? I took a breath. Because no one asked, and she was counting on that. Marla's smile flattened. You're making this ugly. No, I said. I'm just pulling back the curtain. You could feel the tension splitting the room. Some people didn't know what to do. Some looked down, but a few, just a few, looked at me with something I hadn't seen from this family in a long time. Respect. I reached into the folder one last time, pulled out the audio transcript. This is a recording of the phone call where someone impersonated me to my law office. Authorization.